This evening, I will discuss black history from the time of Dr. Martin Luther King's death until now. So, let's take a look at what was going on the day before Dr. King was killed. Dr. King was in Memphis, Tennessee. It was April the 3rd, 1968. As Dr. King was coming to the closing of his speech, he paused. He said, "I don't know what will happen now. We have some difficult days ahead, but it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop, and I don't mind like anybody. I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And he allowed me to go to the mountaintop. And I looked over and I seen the promised land. But I want you to know tonight that I may not get there with you, but we as a people, we will get to the promised land. I'm so happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. My eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. And the next day, Dr. King was killed. The next day, King was assassinated. So let's take a look at some things that was going on prior to King's death. Some things that we may not know about. Of course, we know about some of the threats on his life. But December the 4th, 1967, he made public. It's known that he had planned to have a pro-people campaign. The FBI had some concerns about this. So what they did, they increased surveillance on Dr. King. You know, I'm reminded about an individual that I met. I think I was in Arizona doing a book signing. He was about 60 or 70-year-old white man. And he asked me about my book. I said my book is designed to help bring Dr. King's dream to fruition. He looked at me, he said, "I'm a contemporary of Dr. King. You should know that." Basically what he was saying, that he despised what Dr. King stood for. If we could talk about our director of FBI at that time, I think that description would describe him at that time. And so not only did they have increased surveillance on Dr. King, but they also had increased surveillance on the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. And then they also put increased surveillance on the Poor People Campaign Committee. President Johnson was concerned too. He tried to get King to change his mind about the Poor People Campaign, but he was not successful in doing that. But he warned King that he would not tolerate disruption in Washington, D.C. Dr. King continued on with his plan. And on March the 31st, 1968, about 4 days before Dr. King's death, he left these words with us. And these words that he left with us on March the 31st, 1968, still ring true today. He said, "And I submit, nothing will be done until people of goodwill put their bodies and souls in motion. And it would be the kind of soul force brought into being as a result of this confrontation that I believe would make the difference. Yes, it would be a poor people campaign. This is a crushing phase in America. Ultimately, a great nation is a compassionate nation. America has not met its obligations and responsibilities to the poor. One day we'll stand before the God of history, and we'll talk in terms of things we've done. Yes, we'll be able to say we built gigantic bridges to span the seas. We built gigantic buildings to kiss the skies. Yes, we made our submarines that penetrate the oceanic depths. We brought into being many other things with our scientific and technological powers. It seems that I can hear the God of history saying, that was not enough, but I was hungry and you fed me not. I was naked and you clothed me not. I was without a decent sanitary house to live in, and you provided no shelter for me. And consequently, you cannot enter the kingdom of greatness. If you do it unto the least of thee, my brothers, my brethren, you do it unto me. That is the question facing America today. Now, 31 years later, we still find that America is still not compassionate. It's still not a compassionate nation. It still has not lived up its obligations and responsibility to the poor. We must take a real look at what's going on within this nation. We also must ask some questions about our own personal conduct, because it's up to us. Dr. King said we cannot depend on the government to do anything when it comes to the poor or comes to African Americans without applying pressure. What happened over the last 31 years? History is very important, but the most important thing about history is the history that you record today, because that's what they will be looking for 100 years today. Let's take a look. Over the last 31 years, you helped me take a mental flight. Many of you can record history just as well as I can over the last 31 years. What are you writing now? What are you thinking about? Are you thinking about the O.J. Simpson trial, maybe? Are you thinking about the Rodney King beating, maybe? Are you thinking about Miss Black America, maybe? Are you thinking about a few more black millionaires? Are you thinking about people that have been very effective in the sports? What are you thinking about? Are you thinking about the criminalization of our young people? When I say criminalization, I'm talking about when they're born into an environment and they're not given the support that they need to become productive citizens. And consequently, they find themselves in and out of institutions to the day when we take a look at it. Black males make up less than 6% of the population of the United States. But we find over 50% of the inmates in our state and federal prisons are black males. Something wrong with that picture. And not only that, today, when we take a look at all these institutions, that's 1.7 million people that's locked behind bars. But I can say to you, 3 strikes you out, and you say, okay, something wrong with that thinking. God didn't put us here to be locked behind bars, nor does God put us here to be fearful of walking the streets. If something wrong within your community, it's up to us to correct that. Let's take it home. If your backyard had rodents and there was weeds growing up in your backyard, you would do something about that. In your community, if it's your community, you have a responsibility to ensure that that community is safe. People are getting paid to ensure that the safety of the people within that community is maintained. But however, if we sit back and fall asleep as some of us have been over the last 31 years, we cannot continue in the same vein. We must come together and understand that we have a responsibility. It is our responsibility, and God has given us the power. He has given us the authority to turn these conditions around and take charge of what's going on in our lives and within our community. It's up to us to do that. But what will it take? I was talking to a young man yesterday. He said that he was not from the South, but he had the opportunity to go to Birmingham, Alabama. He said he had never been to Birmingham before. But what he did, as the plane was landing, he began to have a mental flight about what went on in Birmingham, Alabama during the time of the 60s. It was those Negroes, that spirit that Pastor talked about this morning. Some of you may not have been here this morning, but you missed a treat this morning. They had a spirit of unity, a spirit of togetherness, a spirit of understanding, whereby as a result of that effort, someone was killed, someone was hung, someone was shot, someone was beat with fitted clubs, someone was spit upon, someone was just mistreated. He connected with that spirit. When he connected with that spirit, he began to walk around the airport. He began to admire the people that he was able to see there. To the point when he got outside of the airport, he said he went down on his knees and he kissed the ground. He kissed the ground. He kissed the ground. He was able to get in touch with the spirit which is needed at this particular point. We must be able to connect with that same type of energy to go forward into the 21st century. It already has been said that the plan is to not include African American as a family unit. Currently, this is about 24% two-parent household. I'm not saying single parent. For the family unit, eventually you will destroy the people. We must turn these conditions around. I can go on and on, as you know I can, but I'd just like to close with this. When I met Dr. Nanu, the night before, I had prayed. I said, God, I've been all over this nation. I have traveled, I guess over the last 4 years, something like 130,000 miles. I have been just about in every state here, except up to the North Montana and that area, talking to people just like yourself. Many people are involved in doing a number of things, but what we have failed to do, we fail to recognize what other people are doing, to be able to appreciate that particular energy. And so consequently we become very fragmented. What we have to do is have an overall plan whereby you can be able to see the part that you play in this picture and understand what other people are doing in this particular process, so we can come together. Though we just 12% of the population, we deserve all our freedom. We deserve all our freedom here and now. And what I'm asking you to do, get connected. Connect like the man that kissed the ground down in Birmingham, Alabama. get connected with thee. Ask the Lord for your purpose in life, because sometimes our plans, as we know, conflict with the Lord's purpose in our life. Once we're able to do that, we can remove the shackles that enslave us today, the psychological warfare. And once we're able to remove those shackles, we can stand up boldly and look out and say, free at last, free at last.